Hello everyone, Dante here. We're going to dive into an astrology update today as we're entering the window of the eclipse. That is a solar eclipse happening on April 20th and in some places in the world April 19th. This eclipse will be visible in Indonesia and some of those islands around there, as well as parts of Australia and Southeast Asia. And regardless of whether or not we can see the eclipse, it's going to affect all of us. Eclipses either happen with the new moon or the full moon. This is a new moon eclipse, and in 2 weeks there will be a full moon eclipse. This new moon eclipse is with the planet North Node, or Rahu, which is the invisible shadow planet that is essentially the ecliptic axis. So whenever the sun and moon line up with Rahu and Ketu, or the north and south node, we have an eclipse. Rahu and Ketu are symbolized as an asura, or a being without light. Some translate that as a demon that tried to sneak into a queue to drink some of the nectar of immortality that Vishnu was serving to the devas, or beings with light. And as the Rahu Ketu drank some of this nectar, the sun and moon shouted to Vishnu that this was a demon, and they beheaded it and threw it into the sky, thus creating Rahu and Ketu, a bodiless head and headless body that constantly chase the sun and moon. So these eclipses are powerful windows, and in Vedic astrology, they're generally considered malefic. Western astrology sees that the eclipses bring about a huge sudden shift, and this energy stays with us for some time. Some say 6 months, or some say it's connected with the maximum duration of the eclipse. So this will affect everybody differently, but it's sure to bring a lot of changes in your life. The best way to really understand how this eclipse will affect you is by taking a look at how it lands in your own chart, based upon the positions of your planet, especially the ascendant. From the ascendant, you can see which house the eclipse falls in. So in your Western chart, you'll want to look at where you have the sign Aries and Taurus, because this eclipse is on the cusp of the tropical zodiac. In your sidereal or Vedic chart, you'll want to look at the sign of Aries as well, and not as much Taurus, because it's just in that sign of Aries. And if you have planets placed there, or if it's your ascendant, you might find that this area of your life is eclipsed. An eclipse is a block of that light. It's a temporary obstruction to the light. And in the shadow, we are brought into our own shadow material, or what we're unconscious about, what we're holding back in this subconscious realm. And so eclipses can be this time where there's a lot of unconscious or subconscious energy that's brought to the surface for us to integrate. And this energy will impact especially whatever planets we have there, and how those planets connect with certain areas or aspects of our lives. So I'm going to speak in general terms, but if you want to look at more personal areas of how this eclipse will affect you, you can book in a reading. I'm pretty busy now, but I might be able to squeeze some people in. And certainly for the next eclipse, I will be much more available. So I'm going to off the camera and dive into the charts and highlight the aspects that we see in the charts, starting with the tropical Western chart, and then I'll go on to the Vedic chart. Okay, so here we see the Western chart with this planetary combination coming up in the sign of Aries. Now, you see this is happening all right up here, and we have many planets there in that conjunction. There's also the outer moving planet Eris, and Jupiter, and Vesta. Eris and Vesta are asteroids, or dwarf planets, And these planets have a more subtle energy. I only really include them in the reading of the chart when they're very, very close. So they're so close in proximity here that it's worth noting them. We also have a square to Pluto. That red line there is a square from Pluto. And Pluto squares to the eclipse bring about this sense of transformation. Pluto is the planet of death and the underworld, and it's about how we rebirth ourselves anew. So having this aspect to the eclipse can bring out some more serious or heavy undertones. And it's especially adding that potency of going into the unconscious, going into our own underworld of things that we haven't fully excavated there yet. We also see Eris there. Aries is a dwarf planet that has one of the longest orbits of all of the known dwarf planets, and it is a planet connected with rebellion and discord. And Aries is a feminine goddess that stands powerfully for justice and comes with a very fiery, rebellious energy. So with these planets influencing this eclipse, we are likely to see either at this time or for some time after the eclipse that there are themes of some insurgency or some fight for justice or some sort of Pluto kind of oppression and transformation that comes through during these times. There's also the planet Chiron that is in a much wider orb. Jupiter and Vesta. Jupiter brings the energy of expansion wherever it goes. So Jupiter's just amplifying that energy. Jupiter is also a planet of wisdom, so brings more knowledge into the picture of this eclipse. But the planets that are with the eclipse are also getting eclipsed. So that could also symbolize a sort of shadow cast upon our wisdom and our inner knowing. And I'll get more into that when we look at the Vedic aspects as well. Whereas then Vesta is this planet of asteroid connected with the spiritual devotion and dedication. It's what we invest ourselves in spiritually. And this planet is perhaps bringing this attitude of sacrifice, as Vesta sacrifices many of the pleasures and things of the world in order to have that more spiritual experience. So there could be some of that theme coming up now, that we're being invited into seeing what is important for us and what isn't, in order to be in our truest connection with our own heart. Now, we also look to the ruler of the sign that the eclipse is in, and that would be Mars. Mars is in Cancer, and every planet has a sign where it is exalted and a sign where it is fallen. Mars is fallen in Cancer, and so this can bring out some of the more shadow sides of Mars. Mars is a planet of aggression. Mars comes with impulsivity. The positive sides of Mars is the ability to execute with willpower and do what is right. But sometimes that very forthright attitude of Mars comes through in an impulsive way. This can be certainly true in Cancer, who is a very sensitive sign and is where Mars is at its weakest point. So this can manifest as oversensitivity. It can manifest as emotional reactivity. Cancer has a way of sidestepping, right? Crabs walk back and forth. They don't walk straight ahead. So it's this sort of indirectness, whereas Mars is a very direct planet that carries things forward. And so when Mars is in this more indirect sign that's about things that are not Martian at all, like nurturing and caring, healing, motherly qualities of Cancer, Mars is in a sort of weird place. So especially when we see also that Chiron is not too far away from the eclipse, there is some insecurity that might be brought to the surface at this time that we have to look at and process and integrate. Mars is also being aspect through the sextile aspect with Uranus and Mercury. Uranus and Mercury together at the time of this eclipse is about transforming our own mental concepts and our learning and how we communicate. So Mercury is very much this sort of logical thinking mind that likes to study and understand and communicates. It's connected to our communication styles and exchanges of energy. And Uranus is the planet of sudden growth, transformations, epiphanies, breakthroughs, but also things that suddenly shock or disrupt. So there can be some disrupted thought processes around this time of the eclipse. We might not be communicating so precisely, and Mercury also happens to just go retrograde before the eclipse. And so Mercury going into retrograde is like that inwards review of things around communication and understanding, and it might make things connected with Mercury, like travel or communication or writing, become a little bit more, or yes, Mercury is also buying and selling, those sorts of exchanges of energy. Those things can be a little bit off during Mercury retrograde. And of course, I'm of the school of thought that is not to say don't do it, but if you can postpone it, it's better. It's important during Mercury retrograde to bring that reflective quality to the sorts of things that Mercury is connected with. Because if we act more impulsively, which might be a thing with Uranus and Mars aspecting Uranus, we can get some of those more classical Mercury retrograde mishaps. So anyway, when Uranus and Mercury are aspecting the ruler of the eclipse, there's bound to be a lot of transformation and sudden change that takes place. And Mars is often representing that masculine warrior archetype, so things connected with that archetype might be going a sort of review and transformation at this time. Saturn is also aspecting the eclipse, and Saturn makes a more serious tone of things. This is Saturn's sextile aspect, and in Western astrology we see sextile as positive, can bring about those aspects of Saturn that are deeper commitment and seriousness, focus, discipline to this eclipse, and to also the other things in there like Vesta and Aries and so on and so forth. Now there's some more subtle things that take place as well that can be interesting to look at. While we're on Saturn, we note that there's this square between Saturn and Venus, and that can be that aspect is fading away. So it's something that was in place for the past week or so when Venus was closer to Saturn. And Saturn square Venus can be some distance or coldness in our relationships. It can, on the other side, bring about more seriousness and a deeper level of commitment in relationships, as Saturn is a very serious planet. Now, there's also the influence of a lot of these other dwarf planets that get involved. We have Haumea directly across from the eclipse, and we have a slew of Centaur asteroids that are making a trine aspect to the eclipse. The trine is that supportive 120 degree angle. So first of all, Haumea is the Hawaiian goddess of fertility. It's an egg-shaped dwarf planet out there in the reaches of Pluto and Aries. And this is a planet that's connected with the creative evolutionary consciousness. Haumea represents that fertility and can bring in aspects of fertility in the eclipse. This eclipse might be a signal for some people that they want to get more connected with their fertility or creativity. Perhaps it plants the seeds for some people of wanting to bring new beings into this world, wanting to have children. Or perhaps it's more of that creative sort of fertility where we want to create and bring about new sorts of projects and art and things of this nature into the world. And many other astrologers link Haumea to the evolution of consciousness and returning back to that connection with the earth. Of course, when we have Uranus still moving through Taurus, there's transformation happening in the earth. And we'd like to think in this that there could be this sort of return to a more earth-based, earth-connected consciousness that's brought about by some of these transits. These other asteroids, I would consider having an aspect on this eclipse because they are in a... Ixion is at 4 degrees, which is the same degree that the North Node is at, whereas Quorar and Pholus are 4 degrees ahead. It's still enough, because they're all together, that I would consider them having some influence. Ixion's a centaur are connected with betrayal. So themes of betrayal can come up. Quorar is about mystical consciousness and innovation. Pholus is about this archetype of curiosity killing the cat. So you can look in the mythology of those things, again, because they're more subtle, and I don't want to go too off the deep end here. I won't tell all of their stories. Though those sorts of themes, having curiosity that leads you a little bit too far into a point of destruction, mystical consciousness, or betrayal. All of these might be themes that come up around the eclipse for some people. Oops. Don't do that. So, and backtracking 1 second, when you look up to that Uranus situation, Uranus is also quite close to the asteroid Juno, wife of Zeus, who's connected with partnership and marriage. And Uranus bringing transformation and growth in sudden or unexpected ways. There can be some of that transformation or unexpected things in a relationship. Things are being turned topsy-turvy in that area, as Uranus turns everything a bit topsy-turvy, leading to its growth and expansion in unexpected ways. Okay, so now we're on to the Vedic chart. And a note that with the ascendants of these charts, the ascendant is going to be different in every part of the world. And in the Vedic chart, we see not symbols, but numbers. So 1 represents Aries, and we see everything else moving on from there. When we look more to the Vedic meaning of the planet Rahu, or the North Node, the Rahu symbolizes sometimes confusion, doubt, and deception. And the sun represents our sense of self, who we are, and our personal power. So one aspect of this Rahu with the sun can bring about some kind of doubt about ourselves. We can be questioning ourselves, and it's important to let this energy pass and not act impulsively on it. Allow that energy to help us to maybe see what our blind spots might be. Because again, the eclipse is blocking out the light of the sun. What areas are we not seeing? Where is the light not going? Can we bring the light there? Now, the eclipse is also aspected by Saturn here, making its 3rd aspect onto the sun, moon, and all of these other planetary combinations. And this aspect of Saturn is creating more seriousness, more distance, and Saturn and Rahu are both connected with the wind element or air element, and this element is one that can bring decay, it can bring space, it can bring corrosion, it can bring distance between things and between people. it has a serious quality to it. And wind or air is very much connected with mind. So there's this sort of strong mental quality there that can be a little bit disruptive to be aware of. Mercury is also with all of these planets. And Mercury is, again, that logical thinking mind. And so when Mercury is involved there, we're starting to perhaps feel some doubts coming up and are feeling our minds a little bit lost in translation of so many different things happening at once. Again, be aware of Mercury and act slowly and accordingly. The eclipse is sandwiched between benefic planets. Venus and Jupiter are on either side of the eclipse. This is called Shubha Kartri Yoga. When two benefic planets surround any aspect, it brings out positive qualities. And when it's these planets of Venus and Jupiter, these are the teacher planets. They're the gurus. Guru just means teacher. Venus is the teacher of the asuras, beings without light. Jupiter is the teacher of the devas, beings with light. They bring about different kinds of knowledge. But when we're having this aspect of both of them, there can be this ability to learn or teach that comes with this eclipse. There can be an expansion of our knowledge that comes with this eclipse. Now, however, we see that Jupiter is at 29 degrees. It's rounding up. So it's at 29 degrees, and the gap, so to speak, the cusp between water and fire signs in Vedic astrology is known as Gandanta. And this is a place of suffering where planets are in an intense transition. And the associations with those planets are disrupted at that time. And fellow astrologer, I'll shout out Perul, said that this can be connected with why so many things are coming up around the Dalai Lama at this time, because Jupiter is connected with teachers and spiritual leaders. And when that planet is going through Gandanta, there is some shadow cast and some perhaps disruption or transformation that happens with these spiritual leaders. This can also happen on small scale levels with other sorts of spiritual teachers or teachers in general, where things come to light, and Jupiter will be at this Gandanta point for a couple weeks more. Then it moves on into the sign of Aries, starting the zodiac anew, beginning a whole new cycle. So there can be a whole new video, really, on Jupiter transitioning from Pisces into Aries. But I think that's going to be a really intense moment, as Jupiter will be with the planet Rahu. And Jupiter and Rahu together can bring out all sorts of things. Jupiter and Rahu together is sort of like, Rahu can also be considered as rebellious. So it can be rebellious against traditional knowledge and values. Another potential here is disrespect to life. That's another potential aspect of Jupiter and Rahu together. And when they're in this Mars-ruled sign of Aries, that will definitely impact somehow. I definitely believe that Jupiter in Aries with Rahu is going to impact the situation in Russia and Ukraine. I think that will be to Ukraine's benefit. That is what one of my astrology teachers suggested. And I also somehow have an intuitive feeling that more nations will be getting involved in that somehow. So it's going to be very interesting. Other notes on this Aries is that Aries is about the head. It's about thinking. So all of this doubt and all of these shadows that are cast are going to be coming through at a mental level. And we might find ourselves too in our head at this time. We might find that we are overthinking things, and it's important really to let go and drop into a more grounded space. letting that head energy settle into the heart energy is always helpful before acting. So it's also possible that people have issues with the head, like migraines or head injuries from moving too fast. Just be careful at this time and move more slowly. Finally, we want to see what is the nakshatra that this eclipse takes place in. And nakshatra is one of the 27 signs of the moon. We divide the solar zodiac into 12 signs and the lunar zodiac into 27 because it takes 27.3 or something like that days for the moon to move between one phase of full moon to new moon, full moon to full moon, or new moon to new moon, or any phase of the moon, really. So these 27 days of the moon are 3 parts of every zodiac sign. And we're here in the first part, that is Ashwini, the very first set of the nakshatras. Ashwini is symbolized by a horse head. It's connected with horse gods, twins that are the sons of the sun god. Ashwini is connected with natural healing. It's connected with Ayurveda. Ashwini is connected with healing in general. Ashwini brings good luck with health and natural healing capabilities. So this eclipse might bring about a lot of healing potential for some people. There might be an inclination to dive deeper into healing or initiate some kind of healing. Ashwini is also connected with, through its mythology, not taking things or people at face value. Ashwinis are said to be more beautiful, natural. The natives of Ashwini, people born in that, are said to be more beautiful, good looking. But they also have the ability to see the deeper level of value that doesn't meet the eye. So when this eclipse takes place in Ashwini, it's important that we look a little bit deeper and we don't take things at face value and we see what's beneath the surface. Not everything that's good looks so beautiful on the surface. And not everything that looks dazzling and sparkling is always great. We all know those narcissistic people who present such an amazing outer image, and beneath that there's a lot of shadow, a lot of pain, and a lot of abuse. So Ashwini is the sign that allows us to not take things at face value and deepen into healing. And Ashwini is also said to be fond of decorating themselves. So perhaps you adorn yourself in a special way for this eclipse, or bring in something new to your wardrobe that feels exciting for you. Okay, so again, the eclipse will see these things playing out for a period of time. And I'll just end the chart here and go back to video. Oops. Alright, so that's it for our astrology video of this eclipse. I hope that brought some insight to you and you're able to see deeper into how this eclipse might impact you. This is especially important for Aries placements. So look at where Aries falls in your chart and see how that area of your life is being eclipsed, where shadows are being cast that are inviting you to dive a bit deeper. And if you want to dive deeper in a reading, send me a message and we might be able to set something up. Have a really beautiful day, and I will see you next time. If you like this video, of course, please share it and pass along some astrological insight to those who might be interested. Have a beautiful day, and drop into this eclipse in a meditative way, in a grounded way, that allows you to take in all of this energy without letting that Aries impulsiveness disrupt you and cloud your headspace. We've got this. Believe in you. Okay, see you next time.